This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Today, my topic is about chronic pancreatitis. Okay. So, today we'll discuss about. So, I'm going to say about a few topics about the pancreatitis. So, what are we going to discuss? That is about what is pancreatitis, anatomy of pancreatitis, what is chronic pancreatitis, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical feature, diagnosis, and treatment. In brief, so that you can mention in your long essays. Okay. So, what is pancreatitis? It is the largest gland in our body. So, the pancreas is a bland appearing yellowish organ situated in the retroperitoneum, and it is inflammation of pancreas is continued as pancreatitis. Okay. So, the pancreas is a retroperitoneal organ that lies in the oblique position, sloping upward from the C loop of the duodenum to the splenic hilum. It weighs about 75 to 100 grams and is about 15 to 20 centimeters in length. It is anatomically divided into head, neck, body, and tail. Okay, so head of the pancreas, it is present in the C loop of the duodenum. So the duodenum curves from D1, D2, and D3. It takes a C loop. So in that C loop is situated the head of the pancreas, and it is posterior to the transverse mesocolon. Above the head of the pancreas, that traverses the transverse mesocolon. So anatomically, it is present in the C loop, posterior to transverse mesocolon. Just posterior to the head of the lies the pancreas, lies the vena cava, right renal artery, and both renal veins. So during the dissection, surgical dissection, that is during the Whipple's procedure, we have to be careful at the level of the head of the pancreas. So where the vena cava and the right renal artery lies. So the neck of the pancreas lies directly anterior to the portal vein. So if we trace out the portal vein, we can say that the position of the neck of the pancreas. Okay. At the inferior border of the neck of the pancreas, the superior mesenteric vein joins the splenic vein and then continues toward the portal apparatus of the portal vein. So this is in simple. The neck of the pancreas, inferior border and superior border. The inferior border, superior mesenteric vein joins the splenic vein. The inferior mesenteric vein joins the splenic vein near the junction of the portal vein. So the superior and the inferior mesenteric vein both are present near the neck of the pancreas. Okay. Superior mesenteric artery lies parallel to it and just to the left of the superior mesenteric vein. The uncinate process on the head of the pancreas wrap around the right side of the portal vein and posterior near the space between the superior mesenteric vein and superior mesenteric artery. The body and tail of the pancreas lie just above the anterior to the splenic artery and the vein. So in brief, see the C loop of the duodenum, where this is the transversing of the transverse colon, and this is the head of the pancreas, neck, and body and tail of the pancreas. So tail of the pancreas lies within the splenic hilum. So posteriorly in the retroperitoneum area, we can see behind the body of the pancreas there is kidney. So inferior vena cava and the aorta both traverse along the neck of the pancreas. So coming to chronic pancreatitis, this is about in brief. So in first year in anatomy, second year in first year in physiology, you will be learning about this anatomy and physiology of pancreas. So coming to chronic pancreatitis, so progressive destructive inflammatory process that ends in total destruction of the pancreas. So in acute pancreatitis, it is an acute inflammatory change seen immediately within 1 week or within 24 hours. That is acute pancreatitis. Now it is chronic pancreatitis. It is seen gradually within a period of time, that is maybe 6 months to 1 year. So it is a progressive destructive inflammatory process. So the three halo changes occur within the pancreas, causing the total destruction of the pancreas. Okay, it is characterized by the severe pain, uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, and malabsorption. So, etiology. So easy to remember. Agarose, that is toxic, that is metabolic, mostly alcohol consumption, and I is idiopathic tropic pancreatitis. G is genetic mutations, and A is autoimmune conditions such as Sjogren syndrome, HLE, like that. And R is recurrent and severe acute pancreatitis, and O is obstructive type of pancreatitis. So pathophysiology, there will be ductal obstruction in hypothesis. This is one of the pathophysiological conditions where chronic alcoholic usage causes SNR and ductal cell destruction, which causes protein-rich pancreatic juice and low in volume in bicarbonate level, and formation of the protein precipitates the plug formation and calcification of the plug and ductal stone formation and ductal obstruction. So there will be parenchymal damage. So in the pathophysiology, these are the chronic conditions that are causes the ductal obstruction. Maybe any of these conditions. Okay. So toxic metabolic hypothesis include direct injurious effect on the SNR and ductal cells. The alcohol consumed causes destruction and lysis of the SNR and ductal cell, which causes release of the lipid toxins, and increased membrane lipid peroxidation and free radical production, which excessive free radical causes destruction of the pancreas, and increased SNR cell sensitivity to the pathogenic stimuli. So stimulate cholecystokinin and production and activation of the pro-inflammatory transcription factor. And necrosis fibrosis hypothesis, this is another type of hypothesis that is proposed in the view of the chronic pancreatitis, that is repeated episodes of acute pancreatitis with cellular necrosis of hepatocytes, healing replaces necrotic tissue with fibrosis, and evidence from natural history studies more severe and frequent attacks. Yeah. Coming to clinical features. So this is about the pathophysiology and anatomy. Now clinical features come under abdominal pain, which is the most common presenting symptoms. The patient typically presents with bending forward position and pain in the epigastrium, often radiating to the back. So on bending forward, the patient complains there will be relief of pain. Okay, it is a deep, boring and penetrating, and is often associated with nausea and vomiting. The pain is so much unbearable that due to pain there will be nausea and vomiting. So these are pain related conditions, clinical features. It may be relieved by sitting forward and leaning forward position, by assuming the knee chest position on the one side, or by squatting and clasping the knees to the chest, because the enzymes that are released that are causing irritation of the pancreas that causes the pain are falling forward. So there will be decrease in pain on bending forward. Okay, the severe pain decreases appetite and limits food consumption, contribution to the weight loss and malnutrition. So intractable pain is the most common reason for hospitalization and for surgery in patients with chronic pancreatitis. So the pain it is so much unbearable pain that patient will present with nausea and vomiting, and on bending forward, the enzymes that are released are less irritant to the pancreas, which causes the irritation that causes pain in the diaphragm, and it also causes pleural effusion sometimes. Okay, steatorrhea. What is steatorrhea? Basically, it is presence of excess fat in the feces. So, how do you detect steatorrhea? By fat stool examination. So, stools are pale and oily in appearance and can be extremely foul smelling. The human pancreas has substantial exocrine reserve. Steatorrhea does not occur until pancreatic lipase secretion is reduced to less than 10% of the maximal output. So, steatorrhea is therefore a feature of far advanced chronic pancreatitis, in which most of the SNR cells have been injured or destroyed. So, affected patients may present with diarrhea and weight loss, and some patients may not bulky foul smelling stools. Okay, with very long follow-up, approximately 50% to 80% of patients with chronic pancreatitis eventually have exocrine insufficiency. Deficiency of fat-soluble vitamins may develop in patients with chronic pancreatitis and steatorrhea. So, significant vitamin D deficiency and osteopenia and osteoporosis occur in patients with chronic pancreatitis. Okay. So, coming to diabetic mellitus, this is the another clinical symptoms that is present along with the pain. So, So like exocrine insufficiency, endocrine insufficiency is consequence of long-standing chronic pancreatitis and is especially common uh, after pancreatic resection and tropical pancreatitis. That is, tropical pancreatitis is seen mostly in intake of the cassava plant. That is sweet potato, like it is the family considered close to the sweet potatoes. So excessive consumption of that cassava plant causes tropical pancreatitis. So islet cells appear to be relatively resistant to the dissection in the chronic pancreatitis. So about half of the patients with chronic pancreatitis will develop diabetes, will require long-term insulin or lifetime insulin supplementation. So unlike type 1, insulin producing beta cells and glucagon producing alpha cells are induced. So they require the lifelong intake of the insulin. So this combination increases the risk of prolonged and severe hypoglycemia with over-vigorous insulin treatment owing to lack of compensatory release of glucagon. Unlikely, ultimately 40 to 80% of patients with chronic pancreatitis have diabetes after long follow-up. Okay. So during an attack, patient may assume a characteristic position in an attempt to relieve the abdominal pain. Occasionally, a tender fullness or mass may be palpated in epigastrium, suggesting the presence of a pseudocyst or an inflammatory mass in the abdomen. Patients with advanced disease exhibit decreased subcutaneous fat, temporal wasting, sunken supraclavicular fossa, and other physical signs of malnutrition. Jaundice may be seen in presence of coexistent alcoholic liver disease. So most commonly on alcohol intake, their patient presents also with jaundice, that is due to bile duct compression with the head of the pancreas. And a palpable spleen may be found in patients with thrombosis of renal vein as a consequence of chronic pancreatitis. This is a complication of chronic pancreatitis, or with portal hypertension due to coexistent chronic liver diseases, that is cirrhosis of liver, there may be present. So how do we diagnose chronic pancreatitis? Single tests are not always confirmatory tests. That is either serum lipase, serum MLS. Those are not the confirmatory tests. Sometimes insulin levels also may fluctuate. So we cannot depend upon the solely upon the blood test. We require, along with biochemistry tests, biochemistry lab tests, and radiological diagnosis, and also sometimes pathological diagnosis is also required. So tests for the structure and tests for the function, both are more accurate in advanced diseases. So what are the tests? So direct tests we use secreted cholecystokinin test, and indirect tests are fecal elastase, fecal chromatrypsin, serum trypsinogen, fecal fat, and blood glucose. These are the combination of tests that are required for the confirmation of the diagnosis of the chronic pancreatitis. So generally on examination only, we can tell whether the patient is presenting with acute or chronic pancreatitis in detailed history. So after performing the test, that is the examination, we go for the functional test, that is direct and indirect test. So what are the tests for the structure? So the radiological diagnosis comes here into the play. That is plain film of the abdomen which shows the changes. CT abdomen, either contrast or non-contrast. Ultrasonography, MRI, particularly magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatitis, and ERCP. This is the plain abdominal film showing the chronic calcification of the pancreatic seen from the head of the body to the tail of the pancreas. Head, neck, and body tail, there is chronic calcification. Okay, so in plain X-ray films, X-ray abdomen films, we can diagnose up to 50% extent. So in ultrasound, there will be salt and pepper appearance of the parenchymal, and there will be pancreatic duct dilatation, and the duct is enlarged, and there will be marked homogeneous heterogeneous pancreatitis. So in ultrasonography, there will be these changes. So we grade the type of pancreatitis on USG findings, that is normal, equivocal, mild, moderate, and severe. So equivocal, it is mild dilatation of the pancreatic duct and gland enlargement, and mild to moderate is pancreatic duct dilatation with irregularities and heterogeneity and increased echogenicity of duct wall, irregular contour of the head, and focal necrosis of the parenchyma. And severe consists cavity greater than 10 mm, intraductal filling, calculate ductal obstruction, and severe duct dilatation, contiguous organ. So pseudocyst of the pancreas, This is the calcification of the pancreas. These are the complication of the chronic pancreatitis, that is formation of pseudocystic calcifications. So it's coming to the CT scan. So in CT scan, you find out whether there is presence of any calcifications or any chronic pancreatic changes. So in CT scan, you see this is the non-contrast enhanced CT. So we find the chronic pancreatic changes. So this is the ERCP. So in ERCP, what we do is we pass the esophageal duodenoscopy. It passes up to the 82 centimeters. That is up to the second part of the duodenum, where we see the duct of ampulla or the ampulla of Vater. From there, we diagnose the by examining, by giving the dye, and we examine the common bile duct and pancreatic duct dilatation are present or not. Okay, this is the ERCP image given, and this is the anatomical representation of the ERCP. Okay, so where the pancreatic duct dilatation is present or not, in generally in chronic pancreatitis there will be dilatation of the pancreatic duct. So other findings are clubbing of the sides of the branches and non-dilated main pancreatic duct. Okay, so there will be clubbing of the sides of the. This is another image showing the main pancreatic duct 1.5 times the normal width of the normal pancreatic duct. Okay, these are the general. This is the other ERCP image showing the clubbing and dilatation of the side branches and where the main pancreatic duct is dilated, and there is presence of stone within the pancreas. This is the image of the ERCP, and this is the anatomical representation of the ERCP image, where you can correlate both the ERCP images where the clubbing and dilatation. So it happens like this. So this is the presence of the clubbing and dilatation of the side branches, and there is a stone present in the main pancreatic duct with the normal width size is 1.5 times greater than the normal pancreatic duct size. Okay. So what are the criteria for the chronic pancreatitis? So normal appearance of the side branches and main pancreatic duct is considered normal, and equivocal, mild, moderate, and severe. In ultrasonography, we have mentioned similar to this. So this is the Cambridge criteria for chronic pancreatitis. So dilatation of the obstruction of the or less than 3 side branches is equivocal, and mild is more than 3 side branches. Moderate is additional stenosis and dilation of the main pancreatic duct, and severe is additional obstruction, cysts and stenosis of main pancreatic duct. So this is the magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatography image showing the MRI image showing the main pancreatic duct and stones present in the pancreatic duct. Okay, this is the dilatation. So treatment contains, coming to the treatment, it contains management of generally once destroyed is irreversible type of damage. So when the patient enters into the phase of the chronic pancreatitis, he cannot be brought back into the normal stage. So our main aim is to prevent the gradual progression of the chronic pancreatitis. So we have to stop the damage, though it is not it is irreversible. We should not allow it to go further progression into the damaging stage. So our main priority is first control the damage, then control the contain the management of symptoms, that is abdominal pain, steatorrhea, and diabetes mellitus. So abdominal pain is the most common type and most debilitating symptom. So we go for various therapies. This include evaluation of pain should focus on identifying associated condition for which specific therapy exists. And these conditions can include pancreatic cirrhosis, duodenal compression, superimposed pancreatic carcinoma, and gastroparesis. So medical treatment include analgesics, cessation of alcohol and tobacco, and antioxidants, pancreatic enzyme therapy, and octreotide. So these are the main modalities of treatment. So endoscopic therapy, it includes pancreatic duct sphincterotomy, stent placement, pancreatic duct stone removal, and combined endoscopic therapy. So analgesics, that is mainly by acetaminophen, aspirin, but most require more potent narcotic agents. So simply by giving acetaminophen or aspirin, the patient may not get relief. So from acute pancreatitis condition, he goes into chronic pancreatitis condition, where he cannot be managed simply by analysis. So there will be multiple modalities will be required in managing. So first you have to check for the general condition of the patient. That is, whether it is well built or well nourished, or ill built or ill nourished. So we have to increase the nutritional supply for the patient, then followed by analysis, then followed by the factors causing the chronic pancreatitis condition causing chronic pancreatitis. That is cessation of alcohol and tobacco. That is cessation of alcohol consumption and tobacco smoking are important in early stage pain relief. Can occur after abstinence from alcohol, but in advanced stages, abstinence does not always lead to symptomatic improvement. So pancreatic enzyme therapy, uses of the pancreatic enzymes to reduce pain is based on the ability of these agents to reduce pancreatic secretion. Octreotide decreases pancreatic secretion and reduces circulating cholecystokinin level. This agent therefore might reduce pain via the same mechanism involved for the use of the enzymes for pain. So antioxidants, patients with chronic pancreatitis have evidence of oxygen stress and reduced antioxidant capacity. And oxygen stress is strong activator of pancreatic stellate cells. These are now several small randomized cells of mixture of antioxidants, selenium, beta carotene, vitamin C, and vitamin E that indicate that this therapy reduces the pain of chronic pancreatitis. So endoscopic treatment, papillary stenosis inappropriately, patients of pancreatic duct sphincterotomy will facilitate drainage, reduce ductal pressure, and may help alleviate pain. So pancreatic duct strictures, any strictures present, then we have to perform sphincterotomy. Then we direct the stricture and place a stent so that the recurrence of the stricture may not occur. So if there are any stones, require a pancreatic duct sphincterotomy, then structural drainage and extract the stones that causes the obstruction and pancreatic dilatation. Then we place a stent. So how do we manage steatorrhea? You know that steatorrhea is excess of fat present in the stool. So fat maldigestion will be present. It's the clinical problem. So 30,000 international units of lipase are delivered to the intestine by a meal. It should be help in eliminating the steatorrhea. That is, it increases the absorption of the fat from the intestine. So it approximately corresponds to 10% of the normal pancreatic output of the lipase. The goal of managing steatorrhea is to administer 30,000 international units of lipase in the prandial and postprandial portion. If non-enteric coated tablets are chosen, concomitant suppression of gastric acid with the histamine 2 receptor, antagonist of proton pump inhibitor is necessary. There are several explanations for failure of enzyme therapy for steatorrhea. So the most common is inadequate dosage, generally due to patient non-compliance. So the patient, though we prescribe the patient to take the correct sufficient amounts, they may take sometimes the inadequate dosages. So this causes the failure of the therapy. So how do we manage diabetes mellitus? So generally these are the long-term treatment modalities. So simply after the damage of the SNR cells and glycogen cells, these are irreversible damages. So they require the lifelong insulin intake. So the basic key is to manage the symptoms and then followed by progression of the diseases. So ketoacidosis is distinctly unusual. Insulin is often needed, and patients with chronic pancreatitis tend to have lower insulin requirement than patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus. And overvigorous attempts at tight control of blood glucose value are often associated with disastrous complications of treatment, induced hypoglycemia. So these are the medical management modalities. So first we have to manage the patient symptoms, then followed by progression of the diseases to prevent the progression. So surgical therapy, these are when do we indicate for surgery? When the medical therapy fails 95%, we go for the surgical therapy. So intractable pain requiring high and toxic dose of analgesia, and recurring episodes of pain with acute acceleration of the chronic pancreatitis affecting daily activities requiring hospital administration. Inflammation mass of the pancreatic head, CBD or duodenal obstruction, and compression of the portal and superior mesenteric, pseudocysts and pseudoaneurysm, suspicion of malignancy, and pancreatic disease causing chronic pancreatitis. What are the goals of surgery? So what is the main goals? Ductal decompression. So to remove the any compression that causes the pancreatic duct to dilate and the pain. So this is the long-term pain relief, and main pancreatic duct and side ducts also relieved, and maximum stone retrieval. So to address the complication, there are many complications that are pseudocyst and calcification. So to prevent the complications caused by the symptoms caused by the complications of the chronic pancreatitis, that is pseudocyst causes compression of the second part of the duodenum. It causes Wilkes syndrome and it causes the patient more intractable pain. So basically, to relieve the symptoms of these complications, we go for the surgical therapy. So and preservation of the exocrine and endocrine functions are secondary, but important goals are placed. And surgical therapy. What are the surgical therapy? That is drainage procedure of the pseudocyst of the pancreas. That is dual procedure, Puistos-Gillespie procedure, Parlington-Rochelle procedure, Isbicki procedure. These are the procedures. Just remember the names, and you need not go into detail. So the other drainage procedure and these are dissection procedure includes People's dissection, Beggar's procedure, distal pancreatectomy, and total pancreatectomy. So drainage procedures, this is the dual procedure. So in brief, just remember the names of the procedure. You need not go into details of the type of the drainage procedures. Okay. So these are other this is Puistos-Gillespie procedure. Okay, we have to attach the head of the pancreas. Okay, Beggar's procedure. This is the other procedure, and before, during, and after. Okay, duodenum preserving pancreatic head resection. So we'll discuss this all in the next semester. Okay. So you need not know right now because these all are time taking and these all are complicated procedures. Okay. This is the People's procedure. That is, this is the main procedure. Okay. This is the before procedure and after procedure. This is the surgical People's procedure. These are the part removed. Okay. Total pancreatectomy. And these are the complications of the People's procedure. That is pancreatic fistula, delayed gastric emptying, hemorrhage, biliary fistula, intraperitoneal contractions, peritonitis, pleural effusion, and septic shock. So you just remember the complications and type of procedures. Okay. In summary, pancreatic surgeries are not as morbid as one thought. Okay, and surgery is the final answer to most patients of chronic pancreatitis, and surgery improves quality of life in most patients of the chronic pancreatitis.